Loïc Tassel. Welcome to the Executive Talk. When I read through your CV and when I looked at your professional career, it kind of struck me that you're pretty much a one-company man. You finished your studies in Paris and then you went to Procter Gamble, and you have been here for more than 30 years now. In hindsight, do you sometimes think, it would have been nice to work for another company as well?
Yes, indeed. I've started in P&G when I was very young. I was 21 years old, okay? And today it's more than 31 years of time in the company. I know that sounds like a lot. And sometimes when I interact with my children, they wonder, why, Dad, haven't you changed? And my answer to that is very simple. Because I've been fortunate to work in different countries, different places, different business units, while it's been a one company stand, it feels like I have been working in several, which is why I still keep the level, hopefully, of energy and enthusiasm as when I was almost a teenager.
However, of course, there are different divisions, but it's always the same company in a way, and always the same structure, always the same values, the same philosophy as well. There is that saying that if you work in a company for too long, you might get a bit stuck in the usual habits. But there was never a risk for you that you said, maybe I'm a bit stuck in this. Maybe I have to see something else.
The risk is very clear, and the risk is very clear to be too much internally focused, always running the same processes, having the same great values, which is helpful, but seeing the world in one narrow way. The way I'm trying to escape from that risk is by spending lots of time externally. Consumer, I do visit consumer homes, I go and shop with them in stores all over Europe, and also I'm spending lots of time with external partners, that can be suppliers, that can be retailers, to try and make sure that we're bringing the outside in and view the world in not a monofaceted way.
You said it yourself, 31 years, that's a long time. When you look at that, I think it was in junior, you were a junior brand manager when you started. When you look back at that man who started here 31 years ago, or that boy almost, and the man you are now, how much have you changed? Also, with all the new positions you had, with the new responsibilities you had, are you still the same executive, or have you changed completely?
I think I've changed a lot, okay? Because when I started in P&G, I only knew one country, which was mine, home, France, okay? And since then, I think the horizon has broadened a lot into being in touch now with lots of countries over Europe, sometimes businesses outside of Europe. So changing a lot, but always keeping some of the same principles on how to run a business, how to engage employees, how to motivate. So much broader horizon based on the same rules.
When we talk about those principles and those values, which is the most important for you as an executive, as a head of a huge company in a way?
The most important principles, there were probably two. One is to be very specific on the definition of success. Actually, I view my biggest role as clarifying the true definition of success for any business, any country, any category. And here I've made a very clear stance that it's only going to be focused on results. And in what could be a long series of scorecards, I'm choosing only three: turnover, profit, and cash.
That's quite old-fashioned in a way, but that's
very
old-fashioned, right?
That's very old-fashioned, but that is proving resilient. Yeah. So that's the first one. Focus on outcome, focus on clear articulation of success. And the second core principle is, once you've defined what success looks like, once you define your business model, empowering the people. Having clear definition of what success looks like, very enabling, very empowering to them.
There again, the question, has that changed over the years? I mean, when you talk about, those are kind of personal traits as well, and personal values, if you want to empower the people. If you look back 10, 20 years, did you do the same things that you do now?
I've done the same set of focus, which probably is a good thing, because some of those are fundamental values and they're not changing. The way to talk it, the way to express, the way to motivate a team has fundamentally changed. From what was typically a little bit of a top-down approach, which I have known many years ago, it's becoming now a more consensus-seeking, engaging from the employee standpoint. And I think that's what the new generation is valuing a lot.
Is that due to the new generation as well? Because we know we live in an area of war for talents. You want to have the best people on board, and those people tend to be a little bit different than what they were 10, 20 years ago. They're very demanding. They want to have a certain purpose when they choose their job. Do you see that on a day-to-day level? That you have to match that?
The answer is absolutely yes, and I do see that in every country of Europe. The young generation, which we are hungry for as a source of new blood for the company, is more digitally savvy, is more eager to find a purpose in their job beyond simply the fact of having a job. And I think as a company, P&G, we're doing a good job at giving them what they're looking for, at training them so they're becoming stronger professionals, and at articulating a sense of purpose in their business life, which is why we are able to still attract today and retain and grow new generation of leaders year after year.
Let's take one topic that's very important to the new generation, is sustainability. And you live in a world with consumer goods that you produce a lot. Of course, you produce a lot of plastic as well. That brings with it a certain responsibility. Where do you see that responsibility on a corporate level? That you say, okay, P&G is very has to be very active in that regard, because we are one of those companies which are producing, for example, a lot of plastic.
We are taking that very seriously. The way to think about it is, as the company, we are over 180 years of existence. That's great. But if we want to be there for the next 180 years, we need to adapt to the new world. It's a moral imperative, but it's also a business imperative. From a consumer standpoint, from an NGO, from a retailer, from a legislative standpoint, the request for producing in a sustainable, responsible way is very high, and we want, as the company, to take our full part in that. We have taken very public, high commitment. We're calling them Ambition 2030. That sounds far, but it's actually going to come very close to us. And specifically here on plastics, we are promoting new initiatives to reduce the amount of plastic we're using, reuse the plastic we have, or sometimes simply eliminate the amount of plastic we produce. We have many different tests. We have many new products, packaging, plant interventions to ensure that we will be seen as a responsible company and that consumers can freely continue to use our brands in the next few years.
When you have those long-term visions and those long-term goals, sometimes they clash with the short-term business goals you have. And you said, I'm a pretty simple guy. It has to be turnover, it has to be profit, it has to be the numbers. If those both worlds clash, how do you decide? If you say, okay, long-term that makes sense, but short-term our shareholders might not be happy because it costs us more.
80-20, there is no clash. Because 80-20, delighting consumers by providing them with superior product and the right packaging is the foundation of our business, and that's what we continue to do. When there are trade-offs to be made, especially in terms of cost, for instance, we are taking in Europe the stance of saying we will do the right thing from a packaging, from a product, from a responsible consumption standpoint, even if that means offering a slightly more premium price to our consumers. And I would say generally the consumers are following us on this.
Since you talk about different kind of approaches, P&G is an American company. You're in charge of Europe. Do you feel that in the company sometimes yourself that there are different kind of approaches, different kind of philosophies, maybe also different kind of understandings? Of course, then we talk about the corporate international culture. Do you see there are some risk of clashes sometimes?
On those topics of responsible consumption, it is very clear that Europe is leading the way. Countries like France, UK, Germany,
we're more aware of
Switzerland, the consumers are putting a higher demand on are the companies doing the right thing? Can I use that product and reuse it over time? So we are leading the way globally. So rather than a constraint, I see us being a lighthouse for the global world, because new trends emerging in Europe It's only a matter of a few more years till they're reaching the US, Japan, China. So rather than a constraint, the way we are positioning ourselves in Europe is a lighthouse. We're trying to invent here, create the new solutions, make them a success for our business in Europe, and over time they'll spread.
When we talk about P&G in general, I mean, I said it before, it's such a huge company. And you have, I don't know, 60, 70 brands. Almost a third of them, or more than a third of them, are billion-dollar companies, brands, in a way. That is a huge ship. That is a tanker. Does that ever frighten you, ever worry you, that you're in charge of such a big ship? A lot can go wrong as well, right?
A lot can go wrong. However, a lot today is going right, which is the most important part. If I'm looking at our numbers globally, we have closed last year a very good fiscal year. We've just announced very strong results for Q1, which for us is July, August, September. And in Europe, the very same trend. We just finished a very good fiscal last year in terms of market share, which is a good benchmark of how consumers are choosing our product ahead of some of our competitors. With the August share coming in a few weeks ago, we now have 10 consecutive months of share gain for P&G in Europe. That's our longest standing success. And it's important, however, because winning yesterday in our very competitive industry, there is no entitlement to be winning today or tomorrow. Every day, we need to regain the consumer vote on our product.
That is quite interesting because we had a quick chat before this interview and we were talking about brands, and of course the brands we all know, Gillette and Pampers and Braun and you name them. And you said, yes, but not everybody knows our brands yet, although you have 5 billion customers all over the world. But what is your personal goal? That everybody gets in touch with the brand? I mean, you're still hungry to do more, right?
We are very hungry to do more. A good way to express it is if I put all of the markets in which we operate in Europe, all of the 10 categories where we're in, our value share is 32%. That sounds good. Still means there is a lot of progress.
That you still have to do.
There is a lot of progression to be made. Yeah. However, the important topic in the choice of our business model is rather than just have the obsession for market share, we have recommitted ourselves to grow the size of the category in which we operate and therefore establish a win-win partnership with retailers. And by doing so, which we are doing pretty well those days in Europe, we are having good business results.
When we talk about huge tankers like P&G is, that those huge boats, there's always the risk of they're not that agile and they're not that fast when it comes to new trends, to new business models. And of course, there's always that question of the disruptors of the industry. And of course, there are disruptors in your industry as well. Does that frighten you sometimes that you might think, maybe we're a bit too big to kind of change as quickly and as agile as others do?
That's a great question, and one I'm often asked. And the sense behind your question is, can big company, for instance, thrive on internet? Can big companies sell online? Or is it actually only the small startup who are born to be successful in that space? My answer then is based on fact. Our market share online is higher for P&G in Europe than our market share in physical stores. Not a well-known fact, but something that indicates that it's not the matter of size to be successful.
So you're more online than offline
business.
now.
No, we're still fundamentally an in-store when it comes to the purchase of our brands. However, when we're selling them with the likes of Amazon or the e-retail part of our distributors, we tend to generate an even higher market share than when we're selling in physical stores. So to your question, are we too big to be successful in the new world? The answer is absolutely not.
However, there are new players, as I said, and you've been quite honest lately. There was one example with razors that you can buy online, a new player in that field, and you were honest and said, okay, we didn't react quickly enough to that, for example. That could have been our idea, not theirs. With these examples, do you sometimes have to tell your team as well, let's stay hungry and let's stay open and let's stay focused and with our eyes open to the new challenges and to the new changes that today brings?
Yes. The biggest risk for a big, successful global company is to start to be complacent and to believe that the recipes which have worked for us, let's say in the last decade, will continue to be the one working in the next decade. At a moment where what we call the amount of disruption is unprecedented because of relatively easy access to capital, lower technological barriers. So rather than being disrupted by others, we have put in place a program in our company that we are calling constructive disruption by trying to apply it to ourselves. So for the example, whilst indeed we have suffered in the US by new companies selling razors online, we have established that ourselves in some of our European countries, sometimes being the second on the market, some countries being the first on the market. And by precisely testing, experimenting, sometimes failing, often succeeding, in the new world, we want to be the one disrupting and adapting our business rather than being on the defensive foot because others have done it to us.
In that regard, how crazy can an idea be? I read somewhere that you're even considering doing recycled diapers, for example, and taking those, let's say, used diapers back and sell them again. I mean, can an idea be completely crazy that is formed here, and you always have an open ear for it?
There is no crazy idea. By definition, I don't think of any idea as being crazy. The way we are talking it in our jargon is what I call the growth mindset, which is looking at opportunities, looking at the glass half full, always being ready to learn, test, investigate. Some will fail. Some of our testing do fail, and that's okay, as long as we're having many that do succeed. And for instance, on recycling diapers, we put a test in Amsterdam, which is extraordinarily successful. Consumers do love the idea, again, that recycle or recyclability is a new part of buying diapers, and then we also have different tests on laundry, on other products. So my starting point is I want people to come to me with unconventional ideas. I will not give them millions of dollars to learn because that's too high, but I will give them enough so they can learn and test. And if one of the test crazy ideas do win, that probably is a good thing for our business, keeping in mind that otherwise someone else might do it. And we would rather do that to ourselves.
So we already heard some of your kind of leadership principles. One is think out of the box if you can. Another is never be too complacent, of course. Are there any other values that you want to bring across? You said it yourself. It's very important that I keep my staff with me and I have to motivate them, of course. Is there one thing that you would say, okay, today with my experience as an executive, as a head of a huge company in Europe, that for me is the most important principle, the most important value?
There were probably two. One is we're having strong PVPs in P&G. We call them purpose, values, principles. Those we never challenge. We want to be respectful to each other. We want to be doing business in a nice, compliant, stewardship ways. Those are untouchable. Everything else can be challenged. And my encouragement for the young people is try to look for unconventional ideas as long as there is a path to turnover, profit, cash increase. So clear definition of success, lots of empowerment, lots of freedom, money to go learn and experiment, and then scale up in a good financially sound business manner.
If you put those values on a private test, if you want, you have 5 children. They all go through that period now. I mean, they're about to start work. They're about to start their careers. Would they like to work under their dad? Do you think they appreciate your values?
I hope they do, but I will certainly tell them to go and explore other companies, other activities outside. Okay, I think the future is bright as long as you keep being curious, which I'm trying to stay agile, curious myself. So I think they have strong values as their foundations, but I want them to go and explore the rest of the world.
curiosity is probably one thing that you always need in a professional life. Coming back to my first question, you've been here for more than 30 years. How do you stay curious on a daily level? How can you keep that pace up, considering all the changes that are happening at the moment?
The way that has worked for me, at least, is to try and spend as little time physically in my Geneva office as I can.
Really? So you travel around?
I'm on the road across the 55 countries we're having in Europe every other week. And when I'm on the road, I spend time with consumers in their homes. Sometimes it's a bit intimidating, but that's where I learn the most. I go in stores with them, and I do talk to the young people all over the different countries in Europe. They're the source of inspiration. They're my way to keep in touch with the external world.
Speaking of the external world, of course you can work as a company on a corporate level where everything goes fine, but being as big as you are and being in so many markets as you are, you're of course very depending on political frameworks, for example, on the general state of the world. How much does that impact your daily work? Let's take a very simple example, or difficult, however you want to call it. For example, the relationship between Switzerland and the EU, or the many trade tensions there are in the world. Are you very affected by those?
We are, so from a philosophy standpoint, what we promote as the company is free trade, literally as much as we can. We believe it's good for the economy, we believe it's good for the countries. And what we appreciate as well a lot is stability, predictability of the economic rules, which is why, by and large, our setup here in Geneva, in Switzerland, is a good thing. What we need to watch, and I'm saying more watch than monitor, is all of the political tensions that can lead to higher customs duty, big fluctuation in foreign exchange. As a global company, we're not immune to the fluctuation we're having there. At the same time, we have been here in Switzerland for over 60 years. We're in most European countries for over 50 or 60 years. We have been through a lot, right? We have been through a lot of crises, of political challenges. The lesson for us is always the same. Focus on serving the consumer better than any competitor. And on the long run, our business will keep being prosperous.
Being in Switzerland, is that one of the reasons why you are here? That kind of predictability and that kind of stability you allude to as being the kind of almost like the foundation for the European business. Is that important? I assume
the answer is absolutely yes. Okay.
Does that mean you stay here? That would be my question.
So we're very pleased to be here in Switzerland. We are here for over 60 years. And basically 20 years ago, we have decided to make Geneva here this great place, our hub for our European business, which is why we're having over 1,700 employees, colleagues here in Geneva. More than 60 nationalities are represented in these buildings, so it's a very diverse workforce, and it's the combination of geographical location right at the center of Europe, political, economical stability, which have been the foundation of our installation here in Geneva, and the reason why we are very committed to this place and very committed to be staying here in the future.
And you personally, I guess, you found a home in Switzerland as well. You've been living here for 19 years, being a Frenchman in Switzerland, and maybe a Swiss citizen.
Hopefully soon. Hopefully soon.
When we at the end of the interview, and I ask you privately, what has Switzerland given you? Is there one thing that you would say that has really only worked because of Switzerland, or because I'm almost a Swiss now?
This has been a fabulous place to raise a family. The quality of life, the safety, the quality of the schools, the friendliness of the people. I couldn't have thought of a better place to raise my family than here in Geneva.
And you've been very busy in those 19 years. I mean, if I look at as I said, you have a big family, you run marathons, you do a lot of sports. How do you keep that level up, or in other words, how do you keep that famous kind of work-life balance always at that level?
Is that a challenge? The answer is yes, every day that is a challenge. The way it worked for me is, again, by being very clear on the goals. I spend time with the children. I want to run my 10th marathon in Geneva in May, so I'm getting quite public about this. The way it works is, again, by being very clear on the priorities, empowering my people here on the business, so I can focus on the big decisions that have to be made, while still having a little bit of time and energy left for the family on the evenings and the weekend time. And that recipe has worked well for me so far.
It worked well. You can do everything. Doesn't that mean, on the other hand as well, you're a very competitive man?
We are, and the purpose of our industry is competitive. When I do sports outside, I play to win. I often don't, but I play to win. And in the business, we're playing to win. We're competitors by nature, however, in a way that respects the principal values of the company with a bias and an interest for the long term. Success for me is not defined by a great quarter, like we've had, but by years and years of responsible growth. So competitors, but success defined on the long run.
Loïc Tassel, thank you very much.
Thank you.